So, just gonna first start with the first question. Even though my document isn't loading, I know the questions. This is the first question I recorded in any of my interviews. So the audio is a little shaky, and as you can hear, so am I.
You're an amazing interviewer.
I'm a professional, yes. I'm talking to Jean. That's not her real name. In fact, we won't be using any real names in this podcast to protect the identities of the people I interviewed. Because what we're talking about on this podcast is orgasms. This is Cumming of Age. I'm Josie Herbert. And right now, Jean is telling me about the first time she had an orgasm ever. Whole sitch is about.
I do.
We've discussed it loosely before.
We have.
But I want to start, just tell me about your first orgasm.
Wow. I was 17. I was a senior in high school. I was in a relationship, in a monogamous relationship with a boy. And well, he was 18. Was he a man? I don't know.
Who's to say?
Who can say? And it was really interesting because we actually, at this point we had been together for, 3 or 4 months maybe, and we had a lot of sex. We had sex all the time. Not all the time, but more than I had ever had, because I was the only other, it was very early in my sexual life, so it felt like a lot, but I was not orgasming, I wasn't coming, and it didn't feel strange to me just because I didn't think I should be coming, but I also, wasn't sure if I should or not, wasn't sure if I could or not. Just this whole concept of having an orgasm was, weird to me in my, not weird, just, I didn't really have a relationship with it, but I also, on some level knew that, I wonder why, when we have sex, I never orgasm, I wonder what that's about. And so the first time it was kind of we had gotten high in my garage with some friends and we ran into my house, and it's actually funny, my dad was in the living room. I was in my bed. We were in my bedroom, which was not that far from the living room. But anyway, we weren't doing anything specifically different. I think it was anyway, I came and I squirted and it was great, and I paused and I was just oh my god, did you notice that? And he's like, yeah, and I was like, great, and then we just continued to have sex. And anyway, but it was very interesting because, yeah, like I was saying, I wasn't sure why I wasn't having an orgasm before, but I also I was kind of at this point almost convinced that I was just one of the people who didn't have orgasms, and that was also part of it, that I thought that there were people who couldn't do it, and who it's just sometimes you're lucky and sometimes you're not, and yeah, so it was interesting, and I was always just he does his best, he does, and I think I also was just convinced that it had to be with a partner, and I never really tried to do it on my own. It wasn't even that I just I didn't feel like trying. I don't know, it was weird. So that was my first orgasm.
But unlike Jean, most people don't have their first orgasm during sex with a partner. Out of the 6 people I interviewed, Jean was the only one who had an experience like that. In fact, many orgasms happen before the concept of sex is really understood. Tell me about your first orgasm.
Straight off the bat, yeah.
This is Stacy. She's studying to become a teacher here in Amsterdam, where I held all my interviews.
Do you mean with a partner or just the very first I can remember?
Yes.
I think I was quite young, actually, between the ages of 8 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
9-ish, maybe. And, I need to think really deep. Jeez. I was quite young. I was by myself, and I think I think I was masturbating at this point for quite a while. I think a couple of years. Because I started quite young with that. But it was just like child's play at first.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, I'm trying to think about a moment, but it's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
First orgasm story. Yeah. I'm an only child, so I probably was alone in my bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember that it just felt good. I didn't really associate it with an orgasm yet, because I didn't know what the word meant or that people, had those things.
Long before sex ed, children are often driven to explore their bodies. This next clip is from my interview with a person I'm calling MC. Tell me about your first orgasm.
Okay. To be fairly honest, like I don't exactly remember when my first orgasm was. It was somewhere in my childhood, very, very young. I was born with a hormonal problem, and just my whole sexuality developed way younger. Like I started breast growth when I was 4 years old.
Wow.
So it's pretty intense. I do remember, it's kind of embarrassing, kind of strange, but I used to have like a habit as a kid, I think in 6th class, which makes me like 8 or 7, something like it, very young. And I remember my hormones started to play up, etc. I was a wee bit different than the rest of the class. Also boobs instead, pubes, everything was growing. And I remember if I held my chair in a certain way, pushed my bum a wee bit more to the chair, I had no idea what it was, but it gave me a tingly feeling in my belly. And not being aware of the whole thing that I was doing, I started to do that more often. Just I kind of found it funny, it felt good in my belly. And my teacher found that out. She saw me do that, and she just went oh, don't how do you say it in English? Don't go this way on your chair. How do you call that? Just
rock.
Yeah, don't rock your chair. Stop rocking your chair in the middle of the class. And I never understood the whole problem, so I just kept on rocking the chair. And at one point, she invited my mom and my dad for an appointment at school. She told them that I was rocking my chair, and I had no idea what was wrong with it. And my dad just after school, or even maybe in front of my teacher, turned to me, and he was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" I'm like, "No, you're having sex with yourself." And I was like, "Whoa, holy shit. I'm not doing that. That's super, I'm not a bad person or whatsoever." But still, I didn't completely believe them. So I was you're just making this up to make me feel bad, or stop doing it, or doing lousy excuses. So I still kept on doing that. And then at some point I remember my teacher made a bookmark, and every day that I would not rock my chair, I got a sticker, and that's how I got over it.
Wow.
So it's pretty weird, but I think that was my first contact with small, close to orgasms, I guess.
Even though MC began masturbating and having orgasms at a young age, she wasn't spared of some of the most common difficulties people face when they begin having sex.
Since my whole experience with masturbation and climaxing and stuff is very shameful, I found it very hard to actually come when I was with a guy.
Unlike Jean, MC found it more difficult to come with a partner while she was high. She told me a story about one time she tried.
We did ecstasy at one night. It's just kind of a cool story. But I made my bathroom into a whole jungle thing, disco lights, plants and stuff. And we just decided have sex in the shower.
Yeah.
But we put a shitload of pillows under the shower, just put the shower on. both so high, like very lovingly in this jungle with disco lights, just started having sex on those super warm, wet pillows. If you can't come then, like, it's pretty...
That actually sounds so
it was so
pleasant.
Cool. It was so cool. Like, afterwards, when I sit on the couch, and then the next morning we came in, we're like, wet pillows in the bathroom.
Eventually, though, MC did have an orgasm with a partner. She told me the story.
That was in Germany.
Okay.
My boyfriend had a semester in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and he was half German. And... yeah, I do not completely remember how, but it worked. And I was so like, whoa, like I had to help, of course. But it worked. It was very nice. It was a very, very bad thing, because afterwards he was like, okay, this is possible now. We're going to put a lot of pressure on it. And it was not very easy afterwards. But I do remember being completely like,
Just...
my whole life was a lie kind of thing.
I was like not allowing my body to fully kind of relax and like let myself kind of just experience the pleasure. It just kind of go, because I there's probably a lot of things, like I am a pleaser. I like to my partners to enjoy themselves, but I also like thinking about it now, I also know how much I do take into account my pleasure on a more regular basis. But I kind of just remember being like trying to train myself to like relax into the pleasure, and like, because I think sometimes too I like would be close, but then I would like have the sensation of like having to go pee, and I didn't want to like pee during sex, so I would like kind of stop myself, or I would get really close and I would like get excited, and then we would like go away. So I noticed that it was in my head a lot, or like I was in my head a lot. So I think what was actually interesting was having smoked weed that night did actually, I always kind of know it as helping me, because I was able to just kind of like fall into the night and like fall into the pleasure of having sex and like enjoying that moment together. And I wasn't in my head, I was just more in my body, which was really cool. And so I do remember that kind of shift in my head.
Like Jean and MC, many people told me that relaxation was a factor, both alone and with a partner.
Yeah, I'm the special case, I guess. I don't think I've had my first orgasm yet.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it really is that underwhelming that I haven't noticed. But, well, I don't think that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
This is Sophie. She sat down with me to talk about why she hasn't had an orgasm. But there's more than the difficulty of relaxation that has kept Sophie from trying.
I'd like to,
Mm-hmm.
I think. I don't know why I don't. Maybe I'm just a little bit afraid of finding out it isn't as great as everybody says.
Yeah.
I talked about that with my friends. We talked about if we masturbated and when and how, and well, just growing up and talking about that kind of stuff. And there was another girl who didn't really masturbate or explore, and she just recently had started it, and she said, oh yeah, I had my first orgasm and I thought that was it. So maybe I'm just afraid of that same experience.
So much of it is mental, and
Yeah.
like your brain is your largest sex organ, like it's all happening there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not so simple as
I think that's my problem, because my brain is like all over the place sometimes. So it's pretty hard to I don't know. see, I'm telling myself maybe I should try harder at those times. But that's, I think, a really weird thought. Because it feels like something to achieve. Well, you should just find pleasure in it, I think. And it's maybe I feel like I'm waiting for it to happen and I'm like working up to something, but you should find time to enjoy the process.
Once they were able to relax, many people found it easier to have an orgasm, particularly with a partner. This next story is from Jamie. They told me this story about their first orgasm with a partner.
I will, because that was a lot more recently.
Okay.
Because even though I started having sex with partners when I was 16, it took a long time before I actually figured out how to have an orgasm with them. And I think part of that might have been that I had, spent so much time figuring out how I could have an orgasm that I had like a specific way of doing it by that point. And so it was hard for me to learn how, when someone else's like hands feel a little bit different and when the routines are a little bit different, like maybe getting into that same mindset was tricky for me. So a combination of that and then maybe being with people who also weren't super experienced and were maybe not always super selfless either. Or like a whole combination of factors meant that for the first few years I just faked it a whole lot and I was pretty good at that, and it was fine. And actually how it all eventually did happen is that when I was fairly early on in college, I had a couple of very bad experiences with sex that kind of put me off the whole thing for a while. And then so that was a period in my life of like a year or so when I was not having any sex. And the one time I did try, I actually had a huge panic attack and threw up, and it was not a fun time. But then I started dating this girl named. This was the middle of 2016, so just over 2 years ago now. And I didn't tell her the whole story about what had happened, but I did make it clear that I was very nervous about sex and that I might need to take things slow for a while and try some different things. And she was really good about that. I never went into details, but she would always be nice if I did panic and need to stop for a while. She would always be very kind and would just be like, yeah, we'll just put on a movie for a while and try again later if you want, or not if you don't. So she was a good partner. And I don't know if this 100% counts, but the first time something happened was we were just in her bedroom. We had her own apartment, and she was like, okay, how about you get yourself up and I watch. And so that was after we'd been making out for a while and we're already kind of in the mood, so I did that. And I did that successfully, and so that was the first time I had an orgasm with another person right there in the room. And then I did later have orgasms with her when she was actually doing all the hard work as well.
Yeah, sounds like you had a really supportive person at that moment.
I've had, that was kind of the point where I kind of realized I had to be more selective in the people I dated and have higher standards. So which was definitely a good decision. I think.
Oh. What was the first time you had an orgasm because she was doing things to you
I do remember that. It was another time, same was it this? Yeah, it was oh no, I remember this was actually we were staying at her grandma's house, and she had been like, okay, we're not going to have any sex this weekend because we're staying at my grandma's house and I don't think that's appropriate. And I was like, I totally get it, that is fine, and I will not pressure you into anything. And I was totally willing to go with that. The second night we were there, I woke up in the middle of the night because she was getting my attention, and she was like, hey, up. I was like, what is it? It's like 2 a.m. And she was like, yeah, but I was just having a dream about you. And then she explained the dream to me and was like, do you maybe want to act this out? And, you know, by this point I just had this explanation, and I had been, you know, with someone I was attracted to for a couple of days, not thinking that I could have sex with her, so I was pretty up for that. So we did, and, you know, it was just pretty simple stuff. We didn't do anything fancy. It was just like her on top of me and, you know, fingering me and stuff. But I did have an orgasm from that. Very sleepy one in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But it was good.
That can be a great orgasm, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was part of it. Because I was sleepy, I wasn't really able to get nervous about it. Or like overthink it too much. I was just like enjoying the sensations.
However, unlike Jamie, Stacy found it easier to come with a partner after many years of masturbation.
I do also think that me masturbating from a young age did really help getting to know what I wanted.
Yeah. So you already knew how your body worked
for
a long time going into that.
Yeah, I knew how to give myself an orgasm, so it was easy to explain to somebody else how to give me an orgasm.
Yeah.
This has been the very first episode of Cumming of Age. Look out for our second episode coming to you soon. Our original music is composed by Timothy Fox. You can find his music at timothyfox.bandcamp.com. And I am Josie Herbert.
Eating pussy is called beffe.
Oh my god. Okay.
And so dental dam is called a bef, lapje, like piece of cloth.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I love that.